Ladies and gentlemen, in just a moment you are going to hear the voice of a man who will tell you some tremendously important facts.
Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I am gloriously excited to have the ambassador of the heart ambassador, Sheva Carr, with us today. If you don't know who Sheva is, Sheva has taught hundreds of online courses in her role as founder and CEO of Heart Ambassadors, a capacity building community training program and project incubation organization for world servers. She is a visionary, humanitarian creator, lover of life, author, speaker, director of Oriental Medicine, board certified Polarity therapist, a registered Polarity educator, and an expert HeartMath trainer and coach. Among Sheva's many hats, she is the co-vice president of the United Nations Peace Messenger Organization, Pathways to Peace, the founding CEO of Fyera Incorporated, the architect of HeartMath's HeartMastery program, the founding executive director of the Fyera Foundation and the SunPower Kids. She authored Being the Source of Love and Where the Sky Meets the Earth, and is featured as a love luminary in Mark Schimoff's New York Times bestselling book, Love for No Reason. There's so much more that I could say, and so I definitely, we want to cover that, but this concept, this idea of an ambassador of the heart makes me super honored. If I describe my own spiritual journey over the last 2 years, it has been an understanding of the absolute important nature of my heart and how critical it is.
Look at your tattoo on your hand.
Well, yeah, my wife allowed me to
it's heart, isn't it?
It's a heart with an infinity symbol. Yeah. So as my wife says, I can't take it off, when I go out.
That's brilliant. Beautiful.
Right. So the heart is just this amazing thing. And some people that are watching this, they may go, oh, that's just woo. No, it's not. There's a science behind this. And it's amazing to finally have Sheva on, and we can talk about the absolute important nature of this amazing heart and the intelligence of the heart and the power of love and the shift that we're going through on this planet, away from ourselves into this outer expression and understanding of helping others. And so Sheva is an ambassador to that message, and I can't wait to learn more from her. So thank you for coming. Welcome to the Reality Revolution, Sheva.
I am so honored and touched to be here. Thank you for having me, Brian. And I definitely don't want to start our relationship by course correcting you, but
okay.
Shiva is the god of creation and destruction in Hinduism.
As I understand.
And as I often tell people who call me Shiva, that's a little too much responsibility for me, even with heart power on board. So it's Sheva.
But all right.
No worries. I just don't want to confuse any of your listeners.
I kind of like Sheva better.
Well, let's just say I'm growing into that. You tapped into my aspiration rather than my evolution, which is part of the revolution.
Sheva Carr.
But I'm not there yet.
All right, cool. So let's just start off and tell me how you came to this point where you chose the purpose of your life to really make it teaching the importance of the heart's intelligence and the heart.
Wow. I just want to take that in because, as I said, I had before this been, I don't know, it was like Christmas morning perusing your website with the incredible resources you've created for this community to be ambassadors of heart, and it needs to be plural. This isn't American Idol. No one of us can do it.
Right.
We have to link arm in arm, heart to heart, and this reality revolution is a we, not a me.
Absolutely, 100%.
So thank you for your amazing contribution to that.
Thank you.
And I think all of us, I've heard the founder of the HeartMath Institute that I work closely with say that if you're on the planet at this time, you have a mission, a spiritual blueprint. And that's encoded in your heart. The heart is the first organ to form in the fetus. And science still doesn't know. There's so much mystery around the heart. Science has unpacked so many things, but we don't know what initiates the heartbeat. It happens long before the brain forms. The brain actually forms in the heart and comes up out of it in fetal development. So if all of you were to point to yourselves right now, oh, see, there we go. And my computer just came unplugged. And this whole thing is about replugging into our heart.
Right.
Is that the source of our energy, just like this plug is the source of my computer's energy.
Right.
And because that's where life initiates. So if we asked all of you to point to yourselves, nobody's going to go like this. Never in 35 years of doing this work have I ever seen anyone do that.
Right.
We sense that the center of who we are is here. And what's so fascinating about that is that's transplantable. You can transplant the heart of who you are into another and save their life. Can't do brain transplants. Well, I can't do a heart transplant either. You definitely wouldn't want me to be your physician doing that, not my expertise or wheelhouse. But as a collective, we can do that. That's kind of amazing. So the heart of who we are is inextricably linked to all that is and all who are. In a sense, there's one of us here at the heart of who we are, which means the intelligence that's here, because a brain has been discovered in the heart, literally with its own proteins, neurotransmitters, support cells, its own what we call intrinsic cardiac nervous system that has an intelligence that's constantly trying to get the intelligence of this brain to listen. Like a bad cell phone commercial. Can you hear me now? I'm too busy.
Right.
I have people to see, places to go, things to do. I'm becoming somebody, and the heart's like, woo, we're down here. It's talking to us. And the reason that intelligence is so important for these times is because it's inextricably linked to every other being. So it knows how to guide us in a way through life that meets our needs and makes of us a gift to the wholeness, a contribution to all that is. And that heart's blueprint, what Paul Pearsall called the heart's code, is encoded in the cellular intelligence of the heart, and we can learn to eavesdrop on that intuitive guidance system. Or what, when I'm in an audience like this, as I said, I was so excited to get to talk with you, Brian, because when I'm working with, hospitals or corporations, I'm not always afforded the chance to have this wider conversation, but I sometimes call that heart the guide inside. And it's there for us like a best friend to guide us through every situation we face in life, to manifest our optimal potential and our optimal contribution to this world. So for me, I was a teenager living in a war zone, working with street children, holding dying children in my arms in the middle of this civil war. And this is now, I'm going to age myself here, over 30 years ago. And I came home, I was actually required to come home by the State Department, that it was deemed no longer safe for me to do service work in this civil war. And leaving those children behind in all that devastation, I came home with what then was mystery symptoms. Mm-hmm. Tons of aches and pains, gastrointestinal symptoms, gynecological symptoms, neurological symptoms. I was having seizures, I couldn't sleep. I went into menopause as a teenager. No one could figure out what was going on. I was in and out of the hospital, and some of you listening to this may relate to this, especially as we're experiencing now what are a lot of earth changes. Our bodies are going through all kinds of experiences that medicine in the middle of this pandemic can't necessarily address or explain in the old ways that we used to. So I went from doctor to doctor to doctor and ended up going to medical school myself, trying to unpack the mystery of my own pain and suffering. And on spring break from medical school, I landed in this little research institute and said, I want to volunteer. They said, we don't take volunteers. I said, you do today. So their HR department drummed up a little form for me to fill out. And they said, okay, we have a job you can do. And they put me in this little room the size of a closet with a headset, not unlike the one you're wearing right now, Brian. And they said, we need someone to transcribe all our research. Well, for a young med student, I was in heaven. And as I typed at that keyboard, I felt understood for the first time in 8 years. The research I was transcribing was the research that had been done by the HeartMath Institute. And what I realized is that all these mystery symptoms I had could be explained by stress. And that all that stress could heal by learning how to self-regulate my heart rhythms and listen to the voice of the intelligence of my heart's wisdom. Well, hearing the outcomes of these studies as a medical student gave me a lot of incentive to apply these skills that I was learning. And so I started seeing changes and getting results in an incredibly accelerated way when you consider I had been suffering for 8 years. And one of the simple things that I did that we could have your audience do with us right now is that I realized every day I had worried so deeply about these children that I felt like I had abandoned in the war. Hurricanes came through there, earthquakes. I knew some of them were going to be prostituted, sent to the front lines. I was just a wreck because I had taken those children in as my own. And there was no way to communicate with them. This is pre-cell phones now. If you go into developing countries, kids all have cell phones, even if they don't have shoes. But back then, goodbye was goodbye forever. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I learned was this stress and worry about them is not helping them. Their fate is not in my hands anymore. It's just hurting me. So I learned to shift my attention to the heart. And I want to invite our audience to do this, because if the power and intelligence of the heart and the research, the peer-reviewed, evidence-based research HeartMath has done on this that allows me to bring this into all the top teaching hospitals across the US, has any merit, it's in the take-home value of us being able to apply it. Just like the idea of a car doesn't help you get anywhere, but driving it does. And anybody can use these tools. So the invitation is to focus attention on the area around the heart. And if you're like me and you care a lot, which I'm guessing anybody who shows up on your channel cares deeply, then you want to take what you care about and transform the worry and fear and concern about it, which is caring but stressful, into radiating from your heart the love and appreciation you have for that which you care about. So the way we do that is you focus your attention on the area around the chest. Like you're doing, Brian, if you find it helpful, you can put your hand there.
Okay.
Not required though. Like, a nurse in a COVID ICU unit may be busy intubating a patient. She or he wouldn't be able to put their hands on their chest. They can still focus in the heart. So the good news is these are tools that you can do in the midst of life's demands on you. And with your focus in the heart, you imagine the breath is flowing in through the heart and out through the heart or chest area. Breathing a little slower and deeper than usual, like you just did, Brian. Some people find it helpful to count. I do, but others don't. If you can experiment with it, counting to 5 as you breathe in, and counting to 5 as you breathe out, or whatever rhythm is comfortable. The key in the door to this is that the inhale and the exhale are even.
Okay.
That starts to balance the autonomic nervous system.
Do we hold our breath or just breathe in and out?
Just breathe in and out.
Okay.
So you're not holding your breath. The balance, the autonomic nervous system is like the fuel pedal and the brakes of your car. Distress and stress is like driving with one foot on each, and the car doesn't know, are we coming or going? This even inhale and even exhale begins to finesse the fuel and the brakes. And that changes over 1,400 things in your physiology. That's proven to increase health and well-being. But as we get into the deeper stuff, I know your audience can understand also our power as creators. So as you breathe in through the heart and out through the heart, now anything that you're aware of that you've been worried or concerned about, radiate your love to it instead. And just notice what happens in your body, your emotions, and your thought process as you do that. Are there any changes? What do you observe, Brian?
Well, I was thinking about my taxes, right? You know, that's something I'm worried about and having to do my taxes. So I just started, okay, I'm going to send love to my, and I immediately started feeling better. You know, I started absolutely feeling better. Of course, this is something that I do all the time, but I know that I easily forget it, even though I do it all the time. The amazing thing about this practice is that you forget it, even though you can do it every day, you still forget it. Am I right? It's something I constantly have to remind myself about, right?
Absolutely. And that's why I created HeartMastery and Heart Ambassadors. We have daily calls, just like your channel.
Right.
Here to remind us so we all stay in the conversation and remember.
Right.
And when I was perusing your channel today, that little tool, by the way, is called Quick Coherence.
Okay.
As what happens physiologically, and we'll come back to this, is it creates this coherence in the autonomic nervous system, finessing that fuel and that brake. So it changes the entire physiological system to be what we call physiologically coherent.
Right.
And that has all kinds of benefits. So that tool is called Quick Coherence because it quickly gets us in that optimal physiologically coherent state.
Right.
And just like plugging my computer back in, it actually plugs us into the source of our vitality. So it builds resilience and all kinds of wonderful measurable things that we like to research in our science. But what's so important about this is that not only does it change us, it changes the outcomes in the world. So when you ask me how I got into it, I started doing this for those kids in Nicaragua as salvation for me.
Right.
I never imagined it was actually reaching them. But 8 years later, I got a phone call in LA from a gentleman who said, do you remember Julio and Raquel and Jorge? And I burst into tears. Do I remember? Are you kidding? I'm doing this thing where I'm like sending them love every day. What?
Right.
He said, well, did you like to talk to Anna Raquel? They found me again. She had kept on the streets this little tiny piece of paper with my name and my Canadian phone number on it for 12 years. And when she married an expat in Ohio, she handed him the piece of paper and said, you have to find this woman. So by that time we had the internet and they started searching for me and they found me in my LA medical office. And we went down and eventually tracked down all the other kids. And I got to see how sending them love over those 12 years had changed their lives.
It's something at least 5 or 6 people every day, I try to, from my heart, send them love. And I see it, you'll start to see it if you're interacting with these people, like my kids, or, I start to almost immediately see the effects of it. It's truly amazing. My question that keep on coming up, first, I always have this, we're so mind centric, especially in the West. Maybe it's just because our eyes and our nose and our mouth are around close to the brain. So we kind of think, oh, it's all about the mind and the brain. But maybe if we had eyes, I mean, the heart is a brain. It is it is a mind, and we don't understand that. We think that we're thinking with our head because that's where our eyes are located. So it's just kind of like it's the way our human body is. We naturally think it's all up in here. It's really, that's just kind of it's a battery, kind of like a set of cords connecting down into the heart. And so if we understand that's where the brain is, it's truly amazing. It really, when I try to
There's
go
so
into
many ways to look at it.
yeah.
We have an internet delay because our infrastructure here was affected by the fires. So if I jump in and talk over you, it's because of that. Please continue.
Do. So please do. When I am, and make this my focus, when I try to go into my heart, when I'm closing my eyes, almost like I'm astrally traveling into my heart, out, I don't see a beating heart with blood. I see a universe.
Yeah.
I see stars. I at first I didn't know that. Drinbala Melchizedek mentioned something similar, and I started, and then when I'm like, this is a real place. It's like did my heart create the universe? It's a thought I continue. Did our heart, not mine, but ours, because it all seems like it's one beating heart.
Brian, you're bringing tears to my eyes. I feel like
right?
I met a soul brother here. So
right.
I want to respond to this in two ways.
Okay.
I want to wear my medical hat,
right?
Hat, and the part of me that talks to hospitals and corporations, because I think there's tremendous value in your audience knowing that all of this really is validated by peer-reviewed science.
Is.
And that there's great news about that, because it means we can bring magic to the muggles.
Right.
But then I also want to respond to your direct experience and how it relates to mine, and take my HeartMath, co-director of HeartMath healthcare hat off, and put my weirdo new age Sheva hat on.
right.
And speak off the record on the internet in perpetuity for everyone to see.
It's our secret. Nobody else has to know. It's all good.
All right. So science hat first.
Right.
The great news about this isn't like the Queen of Hearts and Alice in Wonderland, off with the head.
Right.
It's not like that. The head and the heart were meant to work together.
Okay.
And the heart facilitates that. In crude neuroscience, and I'm going to oversimplify it because we don't have 6 years to do a degree together on the internet right now in neuroscience, but in crude neuroscience, there are essentially 3 layers of brain function. The hindbrain, which is responsible for, I affectionately call it my lizard brain or dinosaur brain. This is responsible for approach, avoid. I'm going to eat you. Uh-oh, you're bigger than me. You might eat me. Let me back up.
Right.
Those little geckos and then they go push up, push up.
Right.
Or sometimes, if this doesn't happen as much in COVID, but when people are caught on the freeway and they start, you see them looking like they're little lizards.
Right.
Because they're in this prey predator mode. That's all hindbrain stuff, survival. And although let's acknowledge it, we need that brain. Absolutely. You don't want a stroke in that brain. That brain, if you do, it's locked in syndrome, and that's no fun. Very valuable. It's just that we've evolved. I love your reality revolution, because the word revolution has the word evolution in it.
Exactly.
And it has the word love spelled backwards in it. Love is the key to evolving. And then when we evolve, it creates a revolution.
Right.
A revolution, literally a spiral of growth of our species. And each of us, when we access the power of the heart, can be an implementer of the revolution of evolution for humanity. So we've evolved. That's happened. We added more layers to the brain than dinosaurs had, thank goodness. One of them is the limbic system. That's the second tier of the brain, where we added this. I often think, okay, dinosaurs, the Apple Store came out with this new plugin called Healing. And only mammals had the hardware to download that upgrade.
Right.
Dinosaurs couldn't get it. They didn't have the right hardware, but you see all the mammals lining up at the app store going, oh, wow, have you tried feeling yet? You should see how much faster fear makes you run, or how much better anger makes you protect your young.
Right.
Really get these apps. So the early emotion was really designed to make us approach and avoid better.
Right.
That's all limbic system stuff. So that's survival based. But then along came more evolution in this higher cortex and the nice higher cortex, the prefrontal and frontal lobes of the brain. That's where you and I, Brian, are having this conversation right now.
Right.
Verbal communication, which the Dalai Lama has said dialogue is the key to ending all violent conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Peace requires dialogue. That's coming from here and here. This brain is also responsible for goal setting and envisioning, imagining a new possibility and identifying the steps to take to get there. Now we're starting to talk about being creators, right? Instead of reactors. That's all frontal and prefrontal lobe stuff. Anybody here who has a job, I'm pretty sure you were hired for this.
Mm-hmm.
When we're upset and stressed, see these nice developed muscles right there?
Right.
That's happening more than just to keep some Botox doctor in business. That's shutting down this frontal and prefrontal lobe of the brain. Because if I'm upset, even if it's just an email I got, if it's a saber-toothed tiger coming in to attack, I don't want to get out my iPhone and go, I wonder what genus and species that tiger is. Let me look it up. I don't want to use this brain. I want to get out of there.
Right.
So that's called cortical inhibition, the shutdown of the higher brain's potential when we're stressed. Everybody's had this experience, like you're in an argument with someone and you know you're right, but you can't find the words to express it. Or you're late and you lose your keys. Those kinds of things. It's the brain shutting down. When we activate the heart, like we just did, let's do it again. It's imagining the breath is flowing in through the heart and out through the heart. You could even identify something that has triggered you in stress. You have to know when that happens, the chaotic heart rhythm is like looking at life through a peephole or a shaking camera lens. We're not seeing, by definition, if we're upset, we're not seeing something clearly. That's good news, because the heart is like our steady cam. When we come back to that and breathe that love, care, or appreciation or compassion in through the heart and out through the heart, it changes how we perceive life. We're no longer looking through survival mode. Now we can look through our high definition, higher cortex. And you could just pause and ask that inner guidance as you breathe in through the heart and out through the heart for a more effective or efficient perception or response to the situation that causes stress. And if you happen to hear something right now, I invite you to write it down. That's beginning to tap into what we call the electrophysiology of intuition. And as you follow that, you start unfolding more of that heart blueprint we talked about at the beginning. So now you have your higher cortical function online because the heart sends a signal up the vagus nerve to open the higher cortex. So when you're stressed, you're looking at life like this. When you go to your heart, oh, the answer might be right here, but if I'm stressed, I can't see it. And then I open the aperture of my mind, and that's what enlightenment is. It's cortical facilitation, which the heart creates. Because here's something that's so cool. Did you know, Brian, that you knew you had brain cells in your heart already, but did you know you have heart cells in your brain?
I but I understand it's almost like one separating the two may be a mistake, right? The brain and the heart are one organ.
They're meant to work together. So you
Right.
have pacemaker cells in that emotional brain,
Okay.
in the limbic system, that are eavesdropping on what the heart's saying. So when the heart's chaotic, that emotional brain goes, oh, I better feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
Something must be wrong. When you choose proactively to shift to a coherent feeling like love or care or compassion, that order in the heart talks to that brain and goes, we're safe. We could look at this through our slow processor in the higher brain. So the moral of this story, a very long-winded way of saying, the brain comes out when you go into the heart.
Right.
It wins too. They work together. That's the neuroscience side of me. And that's why the military brings us in to teach them situation and self-awareness. So that when they're sent on when a federal agent is sent on a big mission, they want to be self and situationally aware. The heart gives the brain that access. Or why an ER physician, gets trained by us, or an Olympic athlete, because the whole system is optimized by that physiologic coherence.
Mm-hmm.
Can we go to the fun stuff now?
Yes, please.
Take my neuroscience hat off and put my woo-woo Sheva hat on for a second. Do you know the physicist Nassim Haramein? Have you interviewed him?
I do. I've interviewed him, but I know who he is. Yeah.
He makes such a great interview for your channel. So I trained Nassim and his team at his Coherence project in HeartMath skills and this heart science. And after the training one day, he and I were just sitting around talking. And together we came up with this idea that it felt to us like the heart is really, he called it a naked singularity, which is physics talk sometimes for like a black hole.
Right.
The way I describe it is like a wormhole into parallel universes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think back to that situation, let's just say with your taxes,
mm-hmm.
would you think the outcome of your taxes change if you showed up loving them rather than fearing them?
Right. Yeah.
This is where each of us becomes a creator. So I got to see it with those kids in Nicaragua. Their lives were different than the other kids that they were friends with growing up on the streets because I showed up to love them. In other words, in the equation of life, where the events of life happen, which we can't always control, maybe in the universe designed by Brian, there is no IRS, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But here we are, we're in this universe, and the IRS and tax season is an event that we can't control. Or COVID for that matter,
Right.
A number of things going on in the world right now. But our response to how we perceive those events is a part of the equation that equals the outcome of how it plays out. So we can't always change events, but we can change the part of us perceiving them and responding to them, and that changes the outcome and changes the world. And that's, to me, what it really means to be a heart ambassador.
Right.
We add heart to the equation of life events, and that changes the world with love.
So when I look at the world, I get the feeling that we're going through a process where the heart is being opened up worldwide, and in some ways, some of the conflict and troubles we see is some of this. Some people, it's a response. They're seeing injustices, and before their heart was closed to it. Now their heart is open. I can't take this. This is not something I personally can accept anymore, right? And so it seems like it's on a global scale. It's not just an individual. You're doing it one by one, but do you see trends, globally, where it's people are starting to awake, their hearts are starting to awaken?
100% yes. And in our HeartMastery program, which we're going to give your listeners the gift,
right,
the first month of HeartMastery as just a gift of love and support.
Amazing.
Amazing.
So 4 weeks of HeartMastery free when you go to heartambassadors.com, and I'll make sure to put that in the description for this interview.
Absolutely. Yes. And so, and by the way, as part of that 4-week class called Shift to the Heart, you will get daily calls where we get together with the global community and practice together. Because to your point, even people like you and me who made our life's work, you know, we do it first thing in the morning and then boom, we get that one email and forgot all about it. It's
Exactly.
the best of us. So we have a daily conversation going to help us all remember to do this together.
Right.
But in the HeartMastery program, it's the one place in the HeartMath universe where we really talk about the global dimensional shift. We also discuss it a little bit in our global coherence initiative, where we're measuring the global implications of this. It turns out that not only do our heart rhythms change, but as our hearts collectively change, the field environment around the world changes. We've measured that on days like the International Day of Peace. There were monitoring systems that picked it up on 9/11, 2001, when the trade towers went down, that our collective human emotion contributes to a global shift. And that global shift is something we talk about very overtly in HeartMastery. So absolutely, yes. And many of the things that we are concerned about, maybe some of the things that at the beginning of our conversation, your audience transformed their concern into love, are levers through which that shift is occurring, are allies rather than enemies.
Right. It would appear at first glance that this movement towards the heart creates a little bit of resistance. There's and those whose heart are not open don't understand it. It doesn't make sense. And so there's a resistance. And so our natural response is in the past, you know, the resistance is not necessarily to love that resistance. It's a real learning experience, and we're going to encounter resistance to this idea of opening our hearts. And as we open our hearts, and it's a tough thing to see that person that we get angry by, or that movement that makes us angry, to send love to it. It's a difficult thing to understand. As we open our hearts, there's that. Does that make sense? I'm trying to explain. There's kind of an educational process. As I open my heart, it's like I'm learning that my natural instinct before was to be opposed or angry at something that my heart might have said, "Hey, that's terrible." And now I'm learning that my heart is teaching me that you can't. That is not the response. That is not the heart's guidance. The heart's guidance is, where is love in this situation?
Yes, I love that question.
Right. Where is that? Where is love?
Where is love in this situation?
And it's a question I ask when it's the toughest. You know,
what you're describing, Brian, in the framework that we work in, is if you and everyone right now could think about someone that is so opposed to your core values, that's just
right,
completely triggers your indignation and outrage.
Right, which is not hard to find.
Not in today's world, right?
No, right.
A lot of polarization. So if you call to mind someone who is like that,
right,
for you, and then recognize we have this distinction in HeartMath called true care versus overcare.
Right.
And understand that I do this work in violent conflict zones, like in the Middle East, where these kinds of deep conflicts and violent polarizations occur. And what I have never encountered is a separation of what we truly value at heart. So how do we get to that? Well, in this moment, whatever group or individual you've called to your own mind, now just experiment with me and shift your attention to the area around your heart. Imagine your breath is flowing in through the heart and out through the heart. And first, just ask yourself, The guinea pig, are you willing to share
All
for
right,
you?
go back, because we had a freeze moment there. So
Okay,
first,
sorry for my internet.
no, it might have been mine. First, ask yourself, you said. So first you said, first ask yourself.
Ask yourself, what core value of mine that I hold dear
Mhm.
is this ideology or this group or this person putting in jeopardy in my perception?
Mhm.
Is there a core value that the person or group you're thinking of is jeopardizing for you, Brian?
Of course. Yeah.
What's the core value?
It could be a core value of of racism or love, or
So let's take the core value, let's take racism as a threat to core values.
right.
And because it's very up in the world and a perfect topic. And in fact, I teach a HeartMath course where I incorporate this neuroscience on inclusivity, inclusion and diversity.
Hmm.
So the core value racism obviously jeopardizes is love, oneness, inclusion,
Right.
truth, depth, because we have to look at the surface of things only if we're going to be racist.
Hmm.
Any others you want to add to that?
That's a good, well,
That's a good start.
that's a good start. Yeah.
All right, now this is why my book, by the way, is called Being the Source of Value, Being the Source of Love.
Hmm.
Where we see our core values jeopardized, that's our calling to
Right.
be the source of it in the world. So let's do it right now.
Right.
It doesn't have to mean in a pandemic you're going out and holding signs in the middle of the street. It can be in your living room, radiating those qualities to the field with quick coherence. Got it?
Right.
So focusing our attention in the heart area, let's breathe our commitment to inclusion and love and acceptance and oneness in through the heart and out through the heart. First of all, as we do that together right now, are there any changes in your own body as you do?
I feel better. I feel more
Well,
relaxed.
if that was all we got out of it,
Right. Less tension. Right. Okay.
okay. So at least we feel better.
Right.
But here's the good news. We are inextricably linked to all that is. Oneness is a real thing.
Right.
So if we feel better, guess what? It's better for the world. Martyr is history.
Right.
We're in alignment. It's better for all that is. Yes, please.
And so that a lot of people may not understand that, and that's where the heart is there evidence scientifically where the heart is connected to the quantum field that you're mentioning,
Yes.
that and that quantum field is what we're sharing. And so when people say that, oh, that just sounds like woo woo, and but there is evidence of this, that the heart is connected to this quantum field. So when we're expressing something through our heart, we're connecting to the same quantum field of whatever it is we're concerned about, or whatever it is that we're thinking about. Right.
Absolutely, yes. We can measure it in all kinds of ways.
Mm-hmm.
We often at HeartMath are measuring it through looking at heart rate variability. So for example, we did a study with 10 people, or I'm sorry, 10 groups of 4 people each sitting around a table. 3 of them were doing this coherence building practice. One was like sitting there clueless, not knowing what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
When the 3 people got coherent physiologically, the 4th person did too without trying.
And that's
So
a
yes,
huge study, because we can, in the privacy of our own homes, change the world.
absolutely yes. And these
People
fields are
don't believe that.
interactive.
People need to understand how
Well, we
powerful
have
they
more
are.
recent studies done at a much larger distance, looking at the interaction of human beings and the global field in different countries over a period of time. So if people are curious about that, a great place to go is the Global Coherence Initiative.
Okay.
because and it's free to become a member of the Global Coherence Initiative, and we do webinars there all the time about our different research. So that's really a leading edge, revealing the hypothesis that yes, not only are we impacted by the field, but we can become influencers on that field. Now, looking at the racism, just you feeling better is enough, because it will, let's just say, you don't want your tombstone, Brian, to say you died of a justified heart attack, because there were
Right.
whole racists on the planet.
Right.
Because you being dead doesn't allow you to do anything about it.
Right.
So it's an improvement, at least, that you felt better. That's moving in the right direction to keep you around longer to make a difference. But now let's look not just at the quantum field mechanics of it, but the literal logistics of it.
Right.
If we decide that racists shouldn't be included in the world, what have we done now?
We've cut them off from the source, or in our minds we have, right?
We've become them.
We become them, yes. We're being racist to them.
Ta-da.
Right.
And pick any stressor, it doesn't matter. When we judge and reject what is incoherent, we are becoming the very incoherence we're seeking to transform. The heart is the alchemist that can embrace and transform it rather than reject and become it through the rejection of it. There's a saying, we're compelled to become that which we judge.
Very true.
So the way racism works for me, it's actually very simple in a neuroscience perspective. All xenophobia, the fear of other or difference, is really just limbic system stuff.
Right.
It's, you know, in a pack of zebras, something that doesn't look like me might eat me.
Right.
It's really that simple. Of course, it gets indoctrinated and reinforced by social infrastructure and systemic racism, but it boils down to survival physiology. So as we're talking, you and I, off the record, about the heart being a portal into parallel universes.
Right.
If you want to enter the parallel universe where racism is a thing of the past, to me, heart tools are the key door. Because the minute the heart is coherent and the higher brain opens, now I'm not in survival mode. So I'm not threatened by what's different. I'm curious and interested.
So the same with poverty, something, you know, I get a lot of people that contact me. It's something that I feel in my heart. I feel it, like I see it, I feel it. I want whatever I can possibly do to help. And oftentimes it's an attitude they have or something. Can I use my heart to help others gain abundance? Have you seen any examples of this?
This is the Heart Ambassador program.
Right. Okay.
This is where we, and here's the other thing I want to say, because I think a lot of your audience wants to share this with the world, to be a voice for this. And as you said, we can encounter all kinds of resistance.
Right.
Whether it's people, as you're saying, who are entrenched in neurological habits that aren't serving them in their life in some way, materially speaking or otherwise, or you know, other types of resistance. And that's what I love about HeartMath, is this science that they've given us. Just like me as a young med student, gives the brain a reason to go to the heart.
Right.
It teaches us why it's a good idea.
Right.
And that helps neutralize the fear that is what resistance really is.
What do you say to the person that's obviously coming from the limbic system that says, if you follow your heart in that way, then you're just weak. You will be manipulated and you're weak and you're falling into a trap of emotions and they can use that against you. What do you say to them?
So several things. First of all, it's more powerful to send coherent heart than to argue and convince.
Right.
That's what people are hungry for right now. Is empowerment replacing power struggles and power domination.
Right.
And the fear of being manipulated comes, in fact, from when we are manipulated by our own limbic system.
Right.
Because when you are empowered from the inside out, no one outside you can manipulate you at all.
You are all powerful.
You can think of it like this. Well, and to say we're all powerful is tricky because it's a co-created universe.
Right.
And so I'm cautious of being overly idealistic, but we all have reactive emotion. If you kick me in the nose, I'll say, ouch, I'm going to react.
Right.
What we overlook is that we also have proactive emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I pick up the phone at the end of the day to call my husband at our research lab and say, you won't believe it happened today. If it's positive or negative, renewing or depleting, either way, I'm putting my physiology through the journey all over again.
Right.
Well, we can start harnessing the implications of that on purpose and proactively recreate our inner and outer reality by generating feeling on purpose. On your website, there's a video that feeling is the secret.
Yes, absolutely.
And HeartMath has given us the science that proves that right.
Mm-hmm.
So when we know that secret and know that no matter what's going on around us, we can initiate our own resonance through the power of the heart. We cannot be manipulated by any external force. It's the difference between being a radio that just amplifies the collective static versus now you're the disc jockey in the radio station playing the music and picking the songs.
Right.
You determine the broadcast, and that changes everything.
Right.
And that's why I say it's literally like a wormhole into a new universe.
It's amazing. You know, it's I have another episode it made me think of an old Dayspring of Youth where they talk about there's a special kind of atom in the heart, the nous atom, that is controlling other atoms that travels with you from life to life. And so it's like the most fundamentally powerful atom that it's attracting other atoms. And I keep on thinking about that. Someday, maybe the science will come to a point where we can really focus on the heart and something wonderful will be discovered by science, some kind of intelligence or power. Perhaps it is a black hole. You know, I personally think that black holes are a form of a higher form of God expressed in this dimension, but clearly something's going on, and it's
yes.
So I mean, we can all agree on that. Something with the heart is going on to be able to beat in the way that it does and to do what it does and to so much stuff that you've done. It's truly amazing. And there's a discipline that I study at the beginning of my channel called Reality Transurfing, and they talk about unifying the heart and mind, and that oftentimes we go through a period where the heart just stops listening to the mind, or the mind stops listening to the heart. And so I'm also thinking about that. The mind seems to be very dualistic, just in its creation, the way it is with the two hemispheres, and the heart seems to be, you know, that one wisdom. And so it's there's a process in learning how we think in this connection with the heart and mind. So how exactly do we, because it gives us our instincts, our intuition, and you kind of mentioned that at the beginning of that. Do you have any suggestions before we go of how to use the coordination of the heart and mind to trust instincts or intuition for making decisions or looking into our future? Does my question make sense?
Absolutely, because this is really part of the leading edge of HeartMath's research. We've been looking at what's called the electrophysiology of intuition.
Right.
And actually published papers that show that the brain and the heart knows. In this particular study we did 6 seconds before the brain and the head knows.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot to that, but especially when we pause to use this quick coherence technique that we've been doing, and there's 40 other HeartMath skills, by the way. So we essentially covered one today. If folks take us up on the gift of HeartMastery, you'll learn 7 more. And I have to tell you, you just won yourself a year of HeartMastery.
Oh, well, wow, I'm honored. That's amazing.
Because I have a policy that anyone who teaches me something I didn't know about the heart wins a year of HeartMastery. And I didn't know about these atom things that you were just talking about. What is it again?
The no-use atom. Check out my episode called The Secret of Atoms. And it's
okay.
and I can't claim it's,
are you kidding?
And there's a book called The Dayspring of Youth by an anonymous author called M, who writes that's how he's explaining the intelligence of the heart, that they're within the heart is this unique atom, that there are different kinds of atoms. And this is a unique atom that has the power to control other atoms. So
I've also heard someone, Deepak Chopra, actually saying that there are imaginal cells in a cocoon of a butterfly that create the transformation from caterpillar to butterfly. And somewhere, I haven't been able to find the citation, but Deepak Chopra said that those imaginal cells are also in the heart, which sounds a lot like this. No-Su atom. So yes, I'm going to check out that episode.
All right.
You taught me something I didn't know, which just
I'm honored. Me. That's amazing. And so when we talk about the heart chakra, maybe there's a confusion because we're not necessarily talking about the heart chakra. The heart and the heart chakra are different. Is there a bundle of nerves in the heart that is separate from the heart? Help me understand the architecture and what you understand in that.
And here's what I'm going to say is that you and I are lifelong friends. I'm so excited to meet you because we could have this conversation for hours and hours and hours. Yeah. And I'm actually supposed to be now going into a hospital training.
All right.
So maybe we can park that question for our next rendezvous.
Sounds
I will
perfect.
just say in response to those two things. One, yes, there are literally glial cells and neurons at the back of the heart. Mm-hmm. The physical heart we're talking about now, that make up the visible heart brain. Visible if we unpacked your heart in an autopsy and looked at those cells under a microscope, like that literal.
Right. Okay.
Then the heart, the physical heart, each cell is its own battery. So it's giving off a huge electromagnetic field that we can measure with crude instrumentation that was developed in the 1800s.
Right.
That field is extending at least 3 feet beyond the body and has influence on the environment around it. The chakra of the heart is a whole other thing.
Right.
But of course would be informed by that. Now, what you're feeling is conveyed in that electromagnetic field, like the radio broadcast analogy. Mm-hmm. In fact, with such specificity that using spectral analysis, with 80% accuracy, I could look at the spectrum of your electromagnetic field and tell you if you were mad or frustrated.
Wow.
So we are literally broadcasting what we feel.
Mm-hmm. And so we're also influencing other people too. With that field, if they're in that field. Right.
100%. No one has to be a victim of life circumstances. All of us are creators. We move with the power of the heart from being a reactor to a creator, guided by
the intelligence,
the intuitive guidance that lives in here. Yes. And so that intuition that you were circling around earlier, we have peer-reviewed published papers that show that intuition initiates in the heart. And in the HeartMastery program, we have an interview with Roland McCready, the director of research at HeartMath, on that very study, the electrophysiology of intuition.
I will definitely check it out. I can't wait. So you better get to your appointment, but I'm so honored that you came on. Thank you for teaching me so much. And it's great to be back in my heart. And thank you so much. And we definitely got to continue our conversation. So please check out the notes in the description for 4 free weeks and free consultation with the Heart Ambassador program. And Sheva, I said it right? Sheva, thank you so much. And welcome to the Reality Revolution. Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm just really excited today because this is the first day that my book is released. This is it. The Reality Revolution. Worked on this for a very long time. So many of the things that I discovered along the way, and I was excited to share it with everybody. Tell you a little bit about it. I'm like everybody else. I'm interacting in the world and starting to realize that my thoughts created reality. As I did this, I started to see some major shifts in my reality. I started to explore the idea of maneuvering through parallel realities. I'm your host, Brian Scott.